All right, today is the official day where we're going to do our Shakti Edition cacao gathering. And I have my beautiful sister Corrin here with us, which I'm just like, I've been so excited about. And first of all, if you're new to this space, whether you're live or watching the recording, my name is Mackenzie. I'm the founder of Cacao Drinking Chocolate, Cacao with a K. And every single month, we do a batch blessing. We tune into the energy of what cacao wants to bring through. What does cacao want to teach us this month? What does cacao want to initiate us into? And it's just a beautiful way for us to open up in curiosity to a new lesson or a new teaching or a new frequency. And so what really came through strong this month was the Shakti edition. Even though I don't use that word often and I haven't studied specifically Shakti, hence why I've invited Corrin to be here with us today. What I did notice was that in the completion of a long relationship, as that relationship was completing, I started noticing just naturally all my energy coming back to myself and my field just coming in, and then my feminine starting to dance in a way I hadn't maybe ever experienced. And it's like all of the ways in which I've been activating my feminine and leaning into the work around my creativity and my life force energy and my sensuality, all of these ways in which I've been studying that and cultivating that over the last many years. It's like it was in like a reserve, and it all just released at one time when this relationship closed. And I wasn't expecting that. It's been like, whoa, what's happening? And I'm still in this discovery right now. And I woke up on September 1st thinking I was going to be launching this one edition of cacao. And I just kept hearing Shakti, Shakti, Shakti. And I'm like, but I don't know what to say about Shakti. So I just heard, trust it, announce it, lean into it, and let's go on this journey together. So I'm excited to hear how it's shown up for you all in your lives. But in the meantime, or first and foremost, I'd love to welcome in Corrin and introduce her to this space and give her a moment to introduce herself. Where is she? Sorry, just trying to find you here. Oh, there you are. Sorry, get lost. All right, my love, will you go ahead and just unmute yourself and introduce yourself? Where are you located? Tell us a little bit about your background, what you're passionate about, and what you're up to in the world, and then we'll let you drop us in.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's truly an honor to be here and share in this way. Shakti definitely resonates with me, and sharing the wisdom of Shakti is something I'm very passionate about. My name is Corrin. I live on Maui and I live in Haiku, a little jungle oasis. And I've been sharing the practices of Kriya Yoga. Sattva Yoga is the lineage that I practice with and have studied intensely in India since 2015. So I've been traveling to India. I started in 2015 and then I moved there in 2016 and lived at this yoga academy, Sattva Yoga Academy in India, and really experienced what Shakti means on a day-to-day and let it become who I am. So really integrating specific yogic technology within my system, within my field, to discover what Shakti is and to live it in a way that really allowed me to awaken to deeper levels of wisdom and just as an integrated human. So this is kind of the journey I took. It was a journey, I won't share my whole story, but this unfolding that introduced me to yoga and the technology of yoga. And it was through loss and through pain and trauma and just trying to find a way to heal and come home to the truth of who I am. And I was very resistant to that journey for a long time. I was working as a pediatric nurse in the hospital system for 9 years. And really, nature was just kept showing me different ways that healing needs to take place and how to find that. So I was kind of hitting up against a couple walls within my own self-growth and slowing down to discover who I am. And was just kind of going through the motions of life and what I thought life really meant and how to show up. And through that journey, it brought me to my own healing and my own need to pause and slow down and really go deeper within to see what I was resisting or the deeper lessons that needed to be learned. And so it was through a bunch of different obstacles or challenges that actually led me to a yoga practice, which started as asana, and then that introduced me to different breathing practices naturally, and then eventually making my way to meet my teacher, who really showed me what Kundalini Shakti is, what Shakti is, that it's just, there were no words. I came out of this one yoga class and I was just like, I just felt like I had seen a whole nother realm of existence and experienced some, like I was levitating out of the room, and all of this love that I was seeking externally was all located within me in that experience of unity. And I had no words for it. I had no intellect for what that experience was, but that experience just showed me so much that's available here for me to experience and for all beings to experience, to come to a deeper state of peace and harmony within themselves. So that's when I started to learn more about yoga and learn more about the different technologies that can allow you to experience deeper states of unity and harmony within yourself. So that's kind of how Shakti was introduced to me, through Kriya and breath work and different practices of pranayama and the technology of yoga as a whole, to really awaken deeper states of awareness within myself. So that's a little bit about how I found Shakti. And of course, there's so much more to it, but that's just an introduction of how I found this journey and this path.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, yes. And I just want to acknowledge, like when I'm in your presence, I can just feel that, like you said, it lives within you and it's an embodiment. And for those of you that don't know, Corrin is also a mama, and she just carries this amazing love and light with her. And so I'm really honored that you said yes to be here and share. So thank you so much. I'd love to, if you're ready, to just have you drop us into an invocation, anything that's on your heart, whether you have breath, just bring us into that centered space.
Wonderful. Yeah, I would love to share a Devi mantra just to get us into the energy of what Kundalini Shakti is, what Shakti is. And it's the feminine, right? It's the feminine principle within us. So in the yogic teachings, Shakti is known as the feminine and Shiva is known as the masculine principle. So we'll go into a Shakti mantra. I'll just, instead of chanting it, I'll just speak it, a Shanti mantra, to bring us to the silence of these teachings. And then I can go into a little bit of wisdom about what Shakti is and how it can show up in our lives. So if you want to just close your eyes and allow yourself to drop into the breath. Just tuning into a softening, a deeper presence, bringing yourself to the here and now of this breath. Chanting or speaking this mantra of the Divine Mother, the sacred feminine, divine feminine. Just allowing yourself to tune into that vibration. Mantra is just a vibration that we can hear that resonates within the physical form as well. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstitaha Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Jnana Rupena Samstitaha. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Mata Rupena Samstitaha. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Kundalini Rupena Samstitaha. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Just breathing this mantra in. This is calling upon the energy of the goddess. Hey goddess, thou art in all energy is thou. Hey goddess, divine mother, thou art manifested everywhere as the mother. Thou art this world. You have become this world. I find you everywhere. Hey goddess, thou art intelligence. Hey goddess, thou art abundance, giver of life and love. I bow to thee. I am flat at the feet in surrender. I accept thee absolutely. Hey goddess, you are the formless, inseparable from reality. I can call upon thee as Shakti and attune to that. When the Devi arises in a particular expression, she arises as a form. Seeing your own particular expression as the Ishta, the divine. So really tuning into that inseparable nature of the divine within you and seeing the sacred within all form. So you can sip this in through the mouth. Take a deep inhale. Hold. And exhale softly out the nose. And as you feel ready coming into the space, you can also stay in a meditation if you feel called. I am just going to share a little bit about Shakti and the wisdom of it and how it shows up in the yogic teachings. So Shakti is the form that shows up as the sacred feminine principle, and Shiva is the sacred masculine or divine masculine principle. So Shiva and Shakti cannot exist without one another, right? We know we need, within each and every one of us, we have the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, right? And so we have to find this inner balance to access the wisdom of both. To access Shakti, you have to balance Shiva, right? And so this shows up in many different ways, but Shakti is the manifest reality, right? So it's all of creation. It's the expression of consciousness. It's this movement of energy. It's how consciousness expresses is as Shakti, right? The tree expresses, the tree could not be without the sacred feminine. All of the manifest reality, the flower, the humans, the animals, all of creation is through the feminine, right? We birth, right? We have a womb and it comes through the feminine. The feminine principle is how anything can be created, right? And the masculine principle is awareness, it's silence, it's the space holder, right? It's the foundation. So within the yogic teachings, you see a lot of the goddesses sitting on top of Shiva or standing on top of Shiva, because that foundation has to be there of silence, of that the ground beneath you is Shiva, right? So that groundedness, the foundation of stillness. Shakti cannot rise without stillness, right? So one can not experience Kundalini Shakti. Shakti and Kundalini are just different words for the same thing, right? And so there's a lot of misunderstandings of what Kundalini is, but I'll kind of go into deeper understanding of what Kundalini is, because it is Shakti. And so that's how it's experienced as Kundalini. Shakti is experienced, shows up, arises as Kundalini. So we cannot have a Kundalini awakening without having stillness, without having a meditation practice, right? One has to have silence within themselves. One has to have a deeper state of awareness in order to even know that it's happening, right? To be conscious that there's some sort of energetic movement within you, right? So this is kind of the foundation of Shiva is pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure just total stillness and silence. And Shakti is the vibration, the dynamic movement of energy within life, right? So we need stillness and dynamism to coexist, right? And so making that just a foundation. So Shakti represents creative intelligence of nature, right? It's subtle. It's not like this. You have to be aware of the subtle currents of energy in order to feel and notice that Shakti is rising. It's sensitive and it's seeking to be awakened within all beings, right? And so what Kundalini Shakti really is, it's the evolution of humanity. It's evolution in general. So it's asking us to tap into our infinite potential of being. Kundalini Shakti is our infinite potential of being. So Kunda means a hole or a bottomless pit. It goes to infinity, right? So Kunda is that infinite potential that can arise within each and every one of us, right? And so what we have to do in order to access Kundalini Shakti, or this intelligence of the universe that flows through each and every one of us, is to really come to a state of transcendence of our own ego identity, right? So we have to transcend who we think we are, all these limitations that we put on ourselves, all this conditioning that we're learned based on our location, what time, earth time we're born in, right? Who our parents are, society around us, right? We get conditioned to see life in a certain way, to speak about things in a certain way, to experience life in a certain way, to feel there's these limited stories we create by the time we're 5, 6, 7. We have this ego identity and we have these ideas of our own limitation or our own lack of self-worth, right? And so what this intelligence does is it awakens and helps us realize who we truly are. It's the realization of the soul nature, the realization in the yogic teachings, we speak of soul as Atman or Jiva. And so it's just realizing your own soul nature, right? And so how Kundalini shows up, it's this energetic serpent, right? Shakti is this serpent. It's represented as a serpent, a snake. And so it's 3.5 times coiled up at the root of the spine. So at your sits bones, right? And this sits dormant within all beings, right? And it can be awakened through an integrated practice of yoga or a technology of yoga, right? And so that's using pranayama practices, kriya practices, meditation, different practices to awaken this intelligence that naturally lies dormant within everyone, right? And so it's an energy serpent, right? And it's 3 times Trinity is within all teachings, right? The law of Trinity, right? And the 3.5 times is that constant move towards progression of evolution. So that constant move towards fulfillment, right? The whole purpose of our existence within the yoga teachings is to evolve, is to locate our true essence, which is bliss. Our nature is to be blissful. Our nature is to be fulfilled, right? And then you see a child running around, right? They're seeking joy. They're chasing the bubble. They're smelling the flower. They're moment to moment, like just infinite energy. That's like this pure essence of Kundalini Shakti we're born with, and then we kind of get dulled down, right? Our senses and everything, society and everything kind of conditions us to not access that as easily, right? We build an ego identity, and this is who I am, and this is my story, and this is what I've experienced. And so I'm limited by that, right? And so what Kundalini Shakti does is it's this infinite wisdom, it's source intelligence. And what it does when it rises within your being is it pierces through our 7 chakras, and it brings this intelligence up. And once it's stabilized, it stays at the heart level. And so that gives us this deeper experience of love and compassion and connection. And so it stays here once you've really integrated it within your system. And what this energy does is it just makes you live more intelligently, right? Someone can have a Kundalini experience, and then there's Kundalini awakening. So Kundalini experience can be someone who's sensitive. They're sensitive in their energy. Maybe in past lives, they've had access to a certain level of wisdom, right? And so they can have a spontaneous Kundalini experience within, maybe they did a practice or something in nature helps that arise. They have a certain sensitivity. But Kundalini awakening isn't just a one-time thing. It's a gradual, slow progression of wisdom, of accessing the intelligence of source, of really letting things arise within you and integrate in a deeper way. So it's a slow, slow, slow journey, and one must have stillness in meditation so that the nervous system can sustain that level of intensity within their being. So it is an intense energy that can arise, right? And so it's just being able to sustain more and more intense experiences of energy, or Shakti. Shakti and energy and prana all kind of coexist, right? So you access it through prana. Prana is our energy, life force energy, right? So you access it through pranayama practices, kriya practices that are allowing you to experience more intense experiences of energy, right? And so the deeper you go into these techniques, the more you can access that intensity and you can live intensely, right? So it's about living enlightenment, right? Someone cannot be enlightened without experiencing the awakening of Kundalini, because that intelligence has to be piercing through your chakras. And that's like the intelligence of the universe rising through a human. So you can tell if someone is awakened to that level based on how integrated they're living, right? It's not just like, oh, she came and she did a talk on this and that was that. And then outside of that, she's totally unconscious, right? It has to be how you show up everywhere, everywhere. That is an integrated way of living. That intelligence doesn't leave when you leave the yoga hall, right? It stays with you. It is part of who you are. When crisis happens, you maintain that state of calm, that state of stability, because that wisdom is integrated within your being. And Kundalini helps us as finite beings access the infinite, right? So maybe within a meditation or within a yoga class or within some sort of profound experience, maybe you're in a certain location, you can access a certain level of infinite, right? You have this experience where you're like, whoa, what's happening? I'm seeing colors differently. I'm experiencing my senses differently. My sense of taste and smell feels more sensitive. Or maybe you're like on a hike in the jungle and everything just feels like really alive, and you're having an expanded experience within your consciousness, right? So this can also be Kundalini Shakti rising, right? It doesn't look a certain way. It doesn't feel a certain way. It's going to be different for each and every being, right? And so it's just wisdom. It's accessing a more expanded state of awareness, right? And so what it is, it's the finite gaining more and more infinite within your being, right? To be able to access and realize its own infinite nature consistently. So it's like the localized self gaining more and more infinity within itself. And it shows up, it's an experience within our consciousness, right? It's not something outside of you. It's all within your consciousness, right? Everything we experience is consciousness, whether we're aware of it or not, right? So Kundalini is also an experience within your consciousness. And so Kundalini is like the whole universe is located within this hollowness, this kunda, this pit, right? This infinite pit, bottomless pit, the whole infinity can be experienced. So as we slowly awaken that intelligence and sustain it through continuous yogic practices, whether it's mantra or meditation or breath practices, pranayama practices, kriya practices, we're just awakening this intelligence, listening to a wisdom talk, right? It's expanding our consciousness more and more. So it's all about accessing greater states of consciousness. So within the yogic teachings, I won't go deeply into it, there are 7 different states of consciousness, right? Everyone has access to the first 3, which are deep sleep, dream state, and wakefulness, right? The 4th state is Turiya, which is a state of awakening, awake consciousness. So that's when you start to experience things beyond the mundane realm, right? You can experience different expanded experiences of here, right? Everything is here, but it's just subtler and subtler and subtler states of awareness. And to be enlightened means that you're just intensely alive, right? You're living fully, right? You're accessing the intelligence of the universe moment to moment. You're living radically. You're not, it's a fearless state where you just know that the universe is going to support you because you are not separate from that intelligence. You've realized that intelligence within you. So it can show up in that way. Yeah, it's to live like with a greater sense of intensity in all ways, as a parent, as a teacher, whatever you're doing. You know, I went back to my work as a nurse for a year before moving more in the direction of using alternative ways of healing. And I just had this whole different perspective on healing and health and vitality, and using these practices to access greater depths of health and wellness. You know, when I first went to India, I had a traumatic brain injury, and it was a mild TBI from a skiing accident. But this was like part of the last straw of my, okay, it's time to wake up. And I knew it was very purposeful. I knew it was like wanting to just shut down my resistance to awaken to greater expanded states and awaken to something far beyond my limited view of life and reality. And so when I went to India and started integrating these practices in my life, it was just so obvious that there's something so much bigger than what we're taught within our education system or how to operate. It was like, oh, why aren't we teaching this in a bigger way, right? Why don't you hear about your energy centers? Why don't you hear about the koshas, the layers of energy within us, these 5 different koshas? Like, I had no awareness. I mean, I had taken a healing touch course in college and had known about the chakras, but just to a different level of awareness, knowing about our energy and how we can work with energy to really have a strong aura, have a strong presence so that we're not so affected by everything around us and everything that's happening. How can you like integrate these teachings and the practices into your life and teach our kids also, and so we don't grow up so unconscious of how energy works, right? And there's certain scenarios where you're born in a certain location and you have access to this wisdom, and I just hadn't really been exposed to it until a little later. I mean, later, it's all relevant. But yeah, until my 20s, I wasn't really aware of energy, how energy works, how I can protect my energy and work with energy. And that's what Shakti is. It's energy, right? And so when you're cultivating your own energetic field and you're using these practices to really awaken to different states of consciousness and awareness and tapping into that godliness within you, when you realize that godliness within you or God within you, I know God can be a word that we don't all resonate with, universe, divine, whatever you want to call it, sacred. When you realize that potential within you, all the fear drops, all the resistance drops, and you start to push your boundaries of what you thought you could do, right? And you start to realize like, oh, I can do this. I can just feel a little more uncomfortable and do this. And, you start to expand how you want to show up in life, how you want to be of service, what your purpose is, right? How does life want to flow through me? How does life want to express through me? What is my, soul's journey here? How can I grow into greater awareness more and more? And it's never, enlightenment isn't an end game, right? It's the beginning, right? It's the beginning. So if you're living enlightenment, then you're living in a way that's conscious, that you're living in a way that's aware, that you're integrated within your being. It's a way of just living with more and more conscious awareness, more and more wisdom integrated within you, right? More and more compassion integrated within you, right? And it's just the beginning. It just means there's more value of light within you, the light of awareness, right? The light of consciousness, the light of the God or goddess within you. And so as you do practices and listen to wisdom and meditate and start to become more and more silent, then you're more receptive to these energies. I could keep talking and talking, but we can open it up for questions.
Please keep going. I'm literally writing, trying to write as fast as I can. Go ahead if you have more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the birth of an integrated being. When you access Shakti, this flow of energy, it's how to become more integrated in your being, right? You access the super being, right? We've heard a lot within the yogic teachings about superpowers or siddhis or whatever you want to call them, right? And it's just accessing this wisdom and this intelligence and cultivating it within you. It's the birth of the deva, the birth of the God. When you start to awaken more intense energy within your physical form, then you realize your infinite potential of being. An example is when I was doing my first teacher training at Sattva Yoga Academy, it's a path of yoga that's using Kriya. Kriya is just energy expansion techniques, right? It's expanding your access to energy. And so Kriya is evolutionary action. Karma is action that creates bondage, right? So the more and more we act in Kriya in a conscious way that is liberating, then the more and more wisdom we access, right? So evolutionary action liberates us, right? So Kriya is evolutionary action. Karma is action that creates more bondage. So moment to moment, you can either be acting as Kriya or acting in a karmic way, right? So do I want more freedom or do I want more bondage? And you can tap in moment to moment, like your intuition, that silent voice can guide you. Like, and you know when there's a question about it, like, oh, is this karmic or is this Kriya? You know, when you have that question, you know, it's very clear, right? Whether you're creating more karma, like, oh, I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it, you know, right? That's this karmic action. It's creating more bondage, right? Versus Kriya is like, oh, I'm just gonna keep my mouth, you know, closed. And I want to say this, but maybe it's not the highest expression of the self for me to say this, right? So that's when we know Kriya versus karma. It can show up in many different ways, right? Or sometimes it means being silent, sometimes it means speaking up about something, right? It can show up in different ways. But one example of how the Kriyas have transformed me, it's the lineage that I follow is the Himalayan Kundalini practice. So it's just Kriyas. So I'll just speak to this because there's massive confusion about Kundalini. Kundalini, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, comes from a specific location in India, right? And so that location has Gurmukhi mantras, a certain language, right? And so that's why it's called Kundalini as taught by Yogi Bhajan. He channeled these practices coming from a certain location and then used this specific language to share that technology. Whereas the one that I learned is Kriya, and it's accessing Kundalini, right? So Kundalini just means they're techniques that access a certain state of Shakti, of intensity that arises within you, right? And so Kundalini yoga is just a word for accessing that Shakti, practices that help you access that Shakti, that intensity within you, right? And so the practice that I learned just has Sanskrit mantras weaved in. So it's breath practices and mantra, sometimes sustained for a certain amount of time so that you can have a certain subtle body experience within you. So that's how the technology works. It's pranayama practices and kriya practices, mantra practices, meditation that naturally allow this energy to arise in a way that can be sustained. And it's like a slow increasing intensity. And so when you're doing there needs to be meditation happening at a daily rate to allow the nervous system to be regulated to hold that energy that rises. Otherwise, there's an imbalance. So it's like you want to increase the Shakti and then stabilize it. Increase the Shakti, integrate and stabilize it, right? So asana is relevant after you increase the Shakti. Asana, that movement of the body in different postures, helps integrate it, right? So Kundalini, what it does, Kriya Yoga, it's clearing your cells, your biocellular memory, right? So we have cells, we're made within our mother's womb, and that's how we contain the information, the blueprint of our ancestors, right? Our mother's mother and our mother's mother's mother, and right? So we hold this information of maybe traumas or things that our past ancestors have experienced, right? It's all within the cellular memory. And what Kriyas do is they clear out this memory and create new intelligent memory. So it's a new vibration, right? And so it allows you to access greater wisdom, but naturally it's just heals out past trauma or samskaras. Samskaras are karma that we hold over lifetimes, right? This bondage that has limited us for lifetimes, that's samskaras. So these practices naturally clear out samskaras and allow you to access greater infinite potential within your being, right? And so when you're accessing Kundalini Shakti, it just quickens the process of awakening. It's like fast track. It's like, whoa, what was all that I experienced, right? And then you can stay in this expanded state, but then you need to ground it and integrate it. And so the asana, income, eating food, grounding, right? Staying here, right? It just, this intelligence comes in and then you want to integrate it, right? And it makes you more and more relevant here, right? Sometimes you hear these stories of like, oh, she had a Kundalini experience and then she went crazy, right? There's stories like this. But if you're really having a true Kundalini awakening, it's a slow progression, right? And it allows you to be more and more relevant here in this dimension. You learn to be wiser here. You learn to take spontaneous right action here. You know how to live more intelligently here. It's not about being somewhere else. It's about integrating within here. How can I be wiser? How can I be more dharmic, more evolutionary, serve a greater community, or however life wants to show up through you. Maybe it's just making coffee and serving smiles and being joyous, or like creating food and allowing joy to emanate through the food. And it can show up in so many different ways. It doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're doing it in a way where you're consistently growing, right? And allowing yourself to access different intensities of energy so that you can awaken to greater levels. And it gives us greater and greater access to energy in general. You don't feel sleepy. You just have more and more Shakti. So what I was trying to say, and then I got sidetracked, was within those yoga classes that I took, initially, it was such like, it just showed me that I could just keep going and going and going and going, doing a Kriya practice. Like certain practices you can do 45 minutes, an hour long, right? And you're accessing, you're not moving from your body. You're not moving from you're moving from this life force energy that gets awakened in you. And maybe you start to see colors or see visions within that experience, within the energy. It starts to awaken your third eye. This greater vision happens, right? And it can show up as colors. It can show up as distinct visions. It can show up as different godly experiences. It can show up as heat or cold. It can show up in the sensory level in that way. It can show up as like a vibration or a tingling, right? So it's a slow, gradual, but it's there when there's no stopping you. You've accessed that Shakti within you. It's like you just could keep going. You don't even feel the body. It's that kind of, and women definitely experience it in the birthing process as well. It's this Shakti that it's just like you're sustained, like every single human comes through this way. And when you're in that experience of giving birth, there's no stopping you, right? There's this Shakti within you that's like, I must get this child out, right? And so it's just going to work for you, through you. And that's this pulsation, this creative potential within all of us, right? So within the yogic teachings, there's this word concept. It's called Haranya Garbha. And it's the unmanifested cosmic womb, Haranya Garbha. And so it's the potential of all to exist through this cosmic womb. So everything has to have a potential first to exist. Okay? And so this is Shakti, that creative pulsation within the universe. It makes the flower, it makes the tree, it makes the river flow, it makes the sky be. And so it's, you start to gain greater and greater access to the cosmos and the intelligence of the cosmos and the whole universe flowing through every single living thing. Should we pause for questions if anyone has any? You know, some of you need to go.
Yeah, I'll ask a few questions to start, and then if you guys have questions, raise your hand. So when you mentioned creative energy, would you say that creativity is Shakti, like creative energy that flows through us in various forms, and even whether it's dancing or painting or just creating something in general? Would you say that's Shakti?
Yes, yes, yes. Song, it's that feminine pulsation. So all creativity, singing, dancing, making art, cooking, all of this, gardening, working with this energy of creativity is all Shakti. Yes, absolutely.
And then if someone doesn't have the practices that you have spoken about right away, can we access it through even dancing in general, or are there other things in our everyday life that we can do to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's tuning into the breath, tuning into your silence, right? So finding a moment to sit maybe on the earth in nature and to breathe with nature, right? Feeling the pulsation of the trees or the earth, or just sitting with a rose or a flower and smelling that fragrance and allowing yourself to pause and really, exactly, really see the greater depth of existence and creativity, right? So whether it's through a meal, right? Taking that meal and pausing, blessing it, being grateful for the prana, the energy that's within that meal, the sun that had to come and be onto the earth, and like all of the variables that make that alive, that then comes into your cells and feeds your cells. And that's what you're made of, is that food that you bless, that you grew, or that you know is grown in a very loving way. And so everything, all energy is Shakti, right? And so we can work with it in so many different ways. You can work with it just by closing your eyes and breathing with nature. You know, nature is the greatest teacher of Shakti, right?
Yeah.
So just getting out in nature and knowing that your breath is Shakti, that your body is Shakti, that everything around you comes through Shakti, right? And so, and that's when the creativity flows. That's when the music or the songs or the dancing wants to flow, is when you tap into this impulse of, we are all nature. I am nature. And that vibration starts to rise, that intelligence starts to rise. But breath, absolutely, breath and stillness, and really allowing yourself to go inward a little more allows you to access the intelligence of Shakti. Or just going on a walk or a hike, or, you know, to the dipping in an ocean or a lake or river, or just being in the vast mountains, you know, really immersing in nature allows you to access Shakti in that wisdom that comes from all creation.
100%. So beautiful. And then what would you say is like the biggest thing, or a few things that you see in the world that we could like let go of, like different patterns or behaviors or things we do each day, that get in the way of accessing this?
It's going to be so different for everyone, right? So really my biggest advice around that is to do things differently, to dress differently, to try speaking differently, to drive a different route, get out of your routine and just start to explore life differently. Maybe listen to a different speaker or play different music, just like really get out of your comfort zone to see what else is happening, and get a different viewpoint of life. Yeah.
I love that so much. And even just thinking about when I go into different groups that are up to things that I would never think I was going to be in this type of conversation, or, the things that they're practicing, that they're doing, that they're exploring, it just opens up my mind to a totally new world. And then I get to see how limited I've been. My mental constructs have been. Yeah. I just wanted to reflect the word intensity that you kept saying, because I think that we are conditioned in a way to kind of dim our energy, like keep it mellow, don't be too big, don't be too loud, don't be too expressed. And so I just love that you use that word intensity, and that it just gives me this sense of like wildness, just let it out. So thanks for that. And then I think the last question I have, I also just wanted to reference what you said, that you get to increase this energy, but then you have to stabilize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I just wanted to like pin that of like integrating this energy is different than just activating it. And so I'm curious, what are some ways, or even one way, that this is shown up for you in like the 3D world, where you've accessed you've began to access more limitlessness beyond what you even knew was possible from the conditioned part of you? What's like a 3D expression of how this limitlessness has shown up in your life, where you're like, wow, I am an infinite creator, and yeah, all things are possible?
So many ways. One of the biggest ways is to feel like, you have to play one role and stick within that role. It's given me the capacity to play many roles, right? And to go beyond, like, we all have this idea, like, oh, my plate is full, like what to do, I can't do any more, right? But what Shakti does is it shows you that just like throw the plate out and either get a bigger plate, or there's no limit to how much you can flow through you. If you're accessing this energy, then there's no lack. It's like you get things done quicker, you're more clear, your performance in all realms of your existence it's spontaneous right action. It's like there's effortlessness within the effort, right? And so it's like things start to happen through you as you. It's not like, oh, I have to do this. It's like, whoa, that just like spontaneously happened and organized because I was in alignment, right? And so the more and more you're in alignment with yourself, like things start to happen before you even realize it was a desire. That desire is fulfilled. And so it's just like consistently aligning yourself and your energy, and then just things spontaneously organize around you. And so the doing becomes less and less, and it's just like, this is what wants to happen through me, right? And so it doesn't feel like a lot of effort. If you were to like write down all the things you're doing, it feels like a lot. But if it's just happening through you, you're like, oh, okay, I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, and this is just aligning for me because I'm in my right energy.
I just had a vision of like my whiteboard with all the to-dos and tasks, like at the top, it should just be like, this happens through me effortlessly. This all will flow through me effortlessly, and approaching it from that way is, yeah, what a relief. When we hear the word Shakti, I do think that a lot of us go to like sensuality and sexuality in the feminine embodiment space and empowerment space and whatnot when we hear that word. So I am curious to hear a little bit about how you see the connection, and how you have become more integrated in your sensuality and sexuality as it pertains to your like Shakti energy moving through you throughout your life.
Yeah, and I love this question because there are a lot of different ideas of what Tantra are or what Shakti is, right? And so it is an intense expression of energy that arises within us, right? And so Tantra is, in the yogic teachings, it's the expansion of energy, right? So all the practices I teach and practice are Tantra, right? But it's just the expansion of energy, right? That's Tan is expansion, and or Tan is energy and Tra is expansion. So it's this expansion of energy, like mantra is expansion of vibration, right? It's all within that context. It's expansion. So we're expanding our energetic field. When you access Kundalini, you have greater connection with your sensuality. There's no like limitation, like you just become more connected with sensuality and what that actually means, and allowing yourself to experience touch in a deeper way, and allowing yourself to express yourself, whether it's feminine or however you want to express yourself. You learn to be more in touch with it versus the conditioned ideas of what sensuality means start to fall away, right? And so you become more and more tuned with your senses, right? Sensuality is senses. So touch, taste, smell, your relationship with your senses starts to naturally expand, right? So you get more and more connection with that. And when we're practicing these practices, we're working with, so there's energy channels, right? We call them nadis within yoga. And these energy channels, there's many of them, right? And so we're working with three main ones within the practices called Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. So it's like the left and the right are Ida and Pingala, and Sushumna is the central channel. So if you've seen the energy bodies or Kundalini images, it's like a chromosome, right? They're intertwining at each chakra, that energy, the left and the right, the masculine and the feminine. And so once these masculine and feminine energy channels are balanced, that's when the Sushumna, the central channel, can open. And when that central channel opens, that's that golden current of Kundalini can rise, right? So it pierces with intelligence. Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, so it just naturally, you become more sensual in your expression. You start to allow yourself to get more in touch with your sensuality, and it's going to look different for everyone. And you start to use sexuality in a way that's sacred, right? Drawing the energy from the root to the third eye, letting it rise up, even within any experiences of sexuality or intimacy. Right? Drawing the energy up. Right? So it's not just, there's a sacredness to all of it that starts to deepen.
I love that so much. Let me see if there was anything else I wrote down. I think that's it, and we can take a few questions from you all. Candy Wheeler.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, just want to say thank you to both Mackenzie and Corrin for hosting this gathering. It's been really supportive and helpful to really like grasp like the concept of like, you know, the goddess of all creation. It's so crazy. It's just like such a wild concept to me. But my question, I guess, or request was if Corrin, would you be open to, like, kind of at the beginning when you said you were like, you know, sharing like Shakti and Shiva don't exist without one another, and giving examples of like what is Shiva and what is Shakti. If you could give like a few more analogies or a few more examples, just to kind of like, I guess, really for me to really grasp that, like, this is Shiva, this is Shakti.
Sure. Yeah. Shakti is like creativity, right? This pulsation and vibration. So it's movement, whereas Shiva is more stillness. Shiva can also be, so within Shiva, there's the principles of like Vishnu or Narayana, and which are sustaining qualities. And then as an archetype, Shiva is the representation also of destruction, so transcendence. Whereas Shakti is more about flow states, creativity, creation, abundance, manifestation, right? It's this dynamic movement. Of course, there are expressions that are more fierce, right? We know the goddess is very dynamic, right? She can be soft and cuddly and sweet, and then she can be just like chop your head off, like clear and knowing what she's going for, right? And then she can just be, you know, steadfast, right? Like just really like not needing any validation, knowing who she is, just like fully present, right? So there's many different ways, like when we're speaking of deities or archetypes, right, within the yogic teachings, they're showing up as like Lakshmi, abundance, right? Durga, just like needing no validation, knowing who you are fully, riding through the forest on the lion, like, well, how can I be of service? That's Durga. Like she shows up in this way of complete confidence. And then there's just different ways. And so it's not really something outside of you you're seeking, but you're looking to use that representation of nature to cultivate a certain quality within yourself, right? So what Kundalini Shakti does is it gives us greater and greater awareness and wisdom and intelligence, right? And so through activating this energy and cultivating this energy, we just become more intelligent humans. We start to speak a different way and cultivate these qualities within us in a different way. So more of the Shiva qualities would be like accessing your silence, accessing your stillness, you know, presence, awareness, transcending the ego, these ideas, these limitations of who we think we are, right? And then sustaining that wisdom through Vishnu or Narayana, right? So Shakti is like expansive, and Shiva is just like this stabilizing foundation. Does that help a little?
I have a follow-up to that, if that's okay, Candy. And then if you do too, the question is, if there is wow, is it raining where you are? It's like pouring, over here. So if you know how we're all women here, so I don't know if you've ever related to this, but like, you know, yearning for a masculine energy, you know, when we're in that yearning or a desire for masculine energy. Do you think that that is really trying to get our attention to be in more stillness? Or,
Yes.
okay, tell us more about that.
Right. So the whole point of how nature works, right, is to create a balance within ourselves. We think that it's outside of ourselves, like, oh, I need a relationship to fulfill this. You know, I need a man to come and ground me and stabilize me and provide for me and all these things, right? Whatever the stories are or ideas or visions, right? Or I need something outside of myself. But the whole point of living in fulfillment or living enlightenment or becoming more and more liberated in our experience of life is to experience a wholeness within ourselves, right? A relationship would really thrive if you were whole first, and then you meet another whole being, and then you choose to grow together through an experience of relating, right? We can reflect on each other. We can, you know, really learn to raise each other up right? Like, oh, I'm witnessing this within you. Okay, I'm going to stabilize this within myself. You know, it's like having someone who can reflect for you, but not, you don't need them to feel whole within yourself. The whole point is that you're whole within yourself and you realize love within yourself, this vertical relationship with love, before you're trying to work with these horizontal relationships with love. Like, you're fully realize everything within yourself. You come into balance of like, okay, I need to be grounded. I need to be still. I need to be silent. I need to hold my own foundation, and then I can let my creativity thrive. I can really let my love blossom. I can let whatever it is that's moving through you flow.
And so that's kind of the dance of noticing if there's an imbalance. Like if the, you know, if, like for me naturally, and I know Candy is too, like we're very creative people, you know,
Yeah.
creativity is just flowing through all the time. And then would we, if we're like, yeah, yearning for that Shiva to dance up to, is it just a matter of like sit down and meditate, like just get still?
Yeah, because when you meditate, you realize nothing's missing, right? And you realize the wholeness and the nature of like the mind that was like creating this longing for something outside of yourself. But when
Yeah.
you sit down and meditate, you're like, oh yeah, like that was just me not being in my wholeness, in my unity, me just like wanting something outside of myself instead of going within and seeing the deeper meaning here.
Yes, totally. Yeah, and I can really get that. And I just loved how you were saying that like Shiva means stillness. Like the Shiva is that stillness, is that groundedness and that pause. And so just to remember that, like, oh, it's just that. It's just my awareness getting my attention to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And then for I'm speaking in heterosexual terms right now. But just as it, I guess I'm not. It's real like, so a man or someone that identifies as a masculine, if they are, let's say, yearning for the feminine and they're like, they're just so focused on that, is that their abandonment of their own feminine energy and their own Shakti?
Yeah, it's needing to find balance within yourself, right? To find like, okay, this inner fulfillment of creativity, of allowing that creative pulsation to flow through you, to enjoying things that are softening, right? Enjoying things that are full of life and vitality, and letting yourself like enjoy the senses, right? Whether it's eating or singing or dancing, or right, like there's that masculine that's like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, we know how it works. And think that it's outside of themselves. They need to get something from the feminine. And of course, what they're calling in is Shakti. It's like if you did a little breath work and a little Kriya or whatever it is, right? And awaken that pulsation within you, you realize like, oh, okay, I'm alive. I don't need it externally, right? It's all within me. So it's that balance of using certain practices to realize it's all within you, and then you can experience it and enjoy the pleasures of being in a human body and the delights of being human. And, you know, of course, there's pains of being human, but there's also joy for us to experience and unity experiences within the human body, right? And so, but without this needingness of it outside of you. It has to be inner fulfillment. And then that's all just part of being, enjoying being in this form. We're here for a reason and form.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Well, I want to respect your time, and if I'll let you choose if you want to take another question or not. And when you close out, just share with everyone where I'll email this again to everyone, but just, yeah, where they can find you. And if you have any offerings coming up, because I know I'm definitely going to be listening to this recording again. There was so much wisdom that just poured out of you, and I'm deeply grateful, sister. Thank you. And I know the whole group is feeling it. And we have a lot of people that will be watching this watching the recording. So where can we find you, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I'm happy to take if there's another question that's here, and then we can close.
Anyone else have a question? Just go ahead and unmute yourself. We're good. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Okay. Amazing. We're good.
Well, thank you. It was really an honor to share Shakti in this way, and we went into different realms of it for sure. Yeah, I teach here on Maui. I am local in Haiku, and you can find me on Instagram. It's 1root7branches is my Instagram. I have 1root7branches.com is my website. I hold mentorships, and I also do Vedic astrology readings, and I do different types of meditation initiation courses and retreats and different things locally and also virtually. So I have a vast range of offerings. Yeah, within my Vedic astrology readings, I give practices and mantras to help balance the energies of the planetary transits or seasons you're in, gemstone recommendations. So all different ways of working with the energy. I don't really give you a projection of what's going to happen to you. I just read your natal chart, your birth chart, to really give you insight as to why your energies show up as in a certain way and how to balance them. So we work with all the planets and transits of your natal chart and just give you a deeper insight as to who you are and why you operate in a certain way. And it gives just a deeper reflection and acceptance as to who you are, and gives that insight, and then practices to balance the energies. So yeah, lots of different offerings. I have a series here in October, Shakti Rising series. So it's very coexisting in timing for us to work together.
I'll be participating in that. And then did you say you have a meditation course coming up, or you're still working on that?
Working on getting it on the calendar. Yeah, a meditation initiation course. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm going to be starting teacher trainings here, 200-hour teacher trainings coming in 2024. So I'm opening a yoga center here, yoga and healing center called Sita Ma's Sattva Home Maui. And I'll be offering the depth of the teachings and as it wants to grow here along the process of growth. So that's the intention and manifestation that's flowing through me, how it wants to show up. So yeah.
Limitless potential.
Yeah, stay tuned and stay connected. So lovely to meet and see you all and be in your presence, and yeah, beautiful group here. So thank you. Thank you for this offering and your cacao and all the Shakti you bring into this earthly dimension as well. Such a blessing.
If you have the mantra you spoke earlier in the translation, that would be awesome to have.
Yeah.
To read.
Yeah, I can send it out to you and you can email it with.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much again. And thanks to everyone who participated. Appreciate you all and sending you love as you make your way on to your day. Closing the space out. See you soon.
Bless you.
Bye.